What's up, manifestors? We've got Matt Cooke in the manifestation house, and he is in Ireland. Whoop, whoop.
Wow. I love it. It's so great.
I know. And guess what, guys, right? So, like, you cannot make this up. I was actually thinking this could be a title of my book, so nobody take this. Like, you cannot make this shit up, right? So, close to the studio, there's a place that I get my coffee. It's called Tang. I love it. And I said to Matt, I'm going to meet you at your hotel. We're going to walk down. We're going to get our coffee cup. And I was going to make him write an affirmation on his coffee cup, which he did. And then we're going to head to the studio. We get to the coffee spot. And Matt, you tell him, what happens?
Well, they've got an event on, haven't they? And it's called Write a Letter to Your Future Self. Right. And we're like, I said to you, didn't I? I said, have you brought me here like deliberately? Is this like, does this normally happen? And we get greeted at the door. There's like a green post box and you get given a letter, an envelope and a coffee cup. And the whole idea is you write a letter to your future self. And I mean, it's basically like perfectly synchronistically set up for like manifestation. And they're like, in a way, like trying to sort of go, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what you should do. And then you say, this is who we are. And it was just the most unbelievable thing. And we write this letter to our future self, which of course I'm doing every day anyway, in like meditation and journaling. And they come over and interview us, don't they? And ask a question, what are we going to write on the letter? And it was just the most unbelievable situation. And I think it just reminded me in that moment that, what are the chances actually of that happening? And that's where my brain goes, what are the odds of that? There's not, because there's no such thing as a coincidence. You and I, we're into this manifestation work. We're resonating and vibrating at the same frequency. It already existed in the quantum field. That's a fact scientifically. And it just happened to be the perfect fit. So it collapsed and rendered right there in that moment, just before we come to this podcast. And there we go. And what do we both do? Beautifully write a letter to our future self, post it, which is great because it's going to be actually delivered to our house in a year's time. And that was really good to do that. And then the best thing of all, we get given a free coffee.
I am abundant.
I am abundant.
Like always.
Yeah.
It's just the coolest thing ever. I just thought, wow, first of all, I've been to this coffee place how many times? It's never happened before. What are the chances that we're there at the right time and that you're here on this date? So it's just like.
And I think what's also interesting, because I flew in quite late yesterday afternoon and my go-to is a flat white. And another passion of mine that people don't know is coffee. Like I'm really into like grinding the beans and everything at home. So I was really looking forward to this coffee first thing this morning. I didn't have one in the hotel. And I just think the beautiful combination there and then of manifestation and coffee as well.
Yeah.
It's just great.
I'm waiting for a coffee collab.
Absolutely. That's given me a new idea for a new manifestation.
Yeah, like I'm waiting for a coffee collab because like for me, I write on the coffee cups every day and I'm like, somebody pick me up, I'll give me the coffee. I'll write on your coffee cups, affirmation coffee cups. Like how great of an idea is that?
Great idea.
Yeah. So now that you've said it, you've mentioned the word coincidence, synchronicity. There are no coincidences. Like, What is a synchronicity? What is it?
Proof that it's unfolding. I call it the breadcrumbs. When we're manifesting, it's spilling over, in a sense, from an infinite field of energy called the quantum field. And it's your own observation that collapses that energy. That's proven scientifically in quantum mechanics, collapse of the wave function. So when you're manifesting, what are you doing? You're visualizing an outcome as if it's already in your life. Now, I think a lot of people just think naturally, because we're human, that it's just going to arrive like a genie in a bottle. But the actual truth is it spills slowly. It collapses slowly. And it's the energy transforming into physical reality. So the most obvious signs tend to be angel numbers, repeating patterns of numbers, overhearing conversations, page in a book that gives you the answer in that moment, intuition, insight out of nowhere, dreams, hearing something on the radio. It's all proof that what you're actually manifesting is happening, but you've got to give it chance to happen because of the rule set that we live in here in physical materiality. Actually does take time because we live in time. Even though time doesn't exist, we still operate in time.
And do you recommend that people tell the universe the sign they want to see? Like, universe, my sign for to meet somebody is going to be 777. Show me that. Or do you say, universe, just send me a sign that it's all going to work out for me? Or I do both personally. Sometimes, like, for when I was manifesting a baby, I used to say, when I see a dummy on the ground, like a soother, that's my sign that it's coming. And I used to just pair seeing the dummy with the words, it's coming. And that was just really, for me, signs for me were just to help me get that vibration back to, like, almost convincing myself it was going to happen, because I was in such a kind of a sad state. But now I just tell the universe, send me a sign, it's going to all work out. And then when the sign comes, you better believe, I believe it's a sign. I know it's a sign, because the minute I think, is that a sign? It's a sign, you know?
Yeah. There's different ways you can ask for signs. I think I always say don't actually ask for the sign. Like, I want a sign, because in a sense, what you're actually saying is I don't want the sign, because you're saying I want the sign. You've got to move beyond wanting and actually write down and say, universe, I'm open and ready to receive a sign today
Mhm.
that gives me proof that everything I'm manifesting is unfolding.
So instead of saying,
I want or
I
show
want
me.
the sign, universe, just say, I'm open to
Universe,
receiving the sign.
Universe, I'm open and ready today to
Mm.
receive the sign. So you're actually saying I'm open, I'm ready.
Yeah.
And that's what I'd recommend. In terms of numbers, I can go on to that. Numbers all hold different meanings, in terms of angel numbers. The way I actually ask for a sign, so, I think people think that as a manifestation coach, manifestation's effortless. And of course, like, it is, but there's elements that are still a challenge for me, and some manifestations take longer. And if I ever seek clarity from the higher aspect of myself that's beyond time, the best way for it to communicate with you, of course, is through signs, but the best way actually is through dreams.
Mm.
So my house that I manifested in Cornwall, I saw it vividly in a dream. Um, and there was a way that unfolded. So what I would do is I would write in my journal by my bed, tonight I will remember my dreams. I'll write that down 3 times. And I'll also say, and through my dreams tonight, I'm open and ready to receive a sign. And then I'll use Jose Silva's technique. He was big in America in like the 70s and 80s, where you actually project initially the issue that you're facing in manifestation onto like a mental screen. So you imagine that, hey, universe, this is like the issue, this is the problem that I'm seeking. And now I'm going to imagine handing you that as a solution to solve. So you actually finish the vision by going, now turn it into a solution to solve. And then what I find is then I'm given the solution to solve in the form of a dream. And that's why so many people um, might connect with a loved one in a dream, or go, oh, I met this person in a dream. It's because in the dreamscape, it's so easy for either our higher self or spirit to communicate with us. It's the easiest way to get a sign, and I'll tell you why. You're removing all friction and noise. And I don't want to go too deep, but we're quantum computing. Everyone should be paying attention to quantum computing, because the way the quantum computers are getting their calculations, and just so we understand that the speed of their answers.
What's quantum computing?
Okay, so great question.
I'm like, okay, I'm confused.
okay,
I'm a little bit not confused, but I'm like,
let me
should
explain.
I stop him here? What is quantum computing? The listener is wondering what's quantum computing. Yeah.
Okay, so for ever since computers have been existing, don't worry, this is going to tie into manifestation. We use classical computers. Classical computers give you answers, they give you output.
Yeah.
So the easiest way to imagine this is if you stand at the entrance of a maze, your goal is to get to the middle of the maze. Now, everyone that's gone through a maze knows that you'll go down one path, oh, dead end, you come back. You go down another path, oh, dead end, you come back. So you do different calculations to eventually find your way to the middle. That's what a classical computer is. A quantum computer, and this is why it's mind-blowing, stands at the entrance of the maze and at the same time instantaneously goes down all the paths at the same time and then gets to the middle. Why? Because it's leveraging the quantum field. It's leveraging what's called superposition in quantum physics, where the answer exists already. So let me just explain. So Google have just developed their Willow chip, and this was December, and it was able to get a calculation in under 5 minutes. That would have taken their most advanced classical supercomputer trillions and trillions of years. Why? Because Willow got the answer from a parallel version of the universe. So Google themselves confirm, oh, this ties into the many worlds interpretation that was first talked about in the 70s. The answer already existed, and Willow was just able to tap into the quantum realm to get it. Now, bringing this back to manifestation then, and what I was just saying about dreams. So how do quantum computers work? They are put in the coldest environments on Earth to be able to perform on a quantum level. And what they do is they remove all friction and noise that this physical world has. That's why they're like dunked deep in like ice cold temperatures. And when they're down there, there's no noise. They're able to get the answers from the quantum realm instantly, almost in a way. Whereas if it was warmer, too much noise, things happen, things break down. We are quantum computers. The answer, our manifestation already exists in the same place that those quantum computers are getting theirs from. So it makes sense then that when we dream, we're questioning the noise of our analytical mind. We're no longer doubting ourselves. We're not questioning. We're doing the same thing in a sense. And that's also what's happening in meditation, for example. Or why is it that we get more signs when we're present in life? Because when we're present, we turn down the noise.
If you're not manifesting in 2025, then what are you doing? And for the love of the universe, will you take down your vision board? We know from neuroscience that you gotta write it to invite it. And that is why I created the Pause Penny Manifestation Box. 7 simple steps. Writing it down, visualization, and taking action, because we know action is key. And why should you listen to me? Well, you should listen to me because I've manifested it all. My soulmate, twins, dream job, dream houses, abundance. And I know that this is the right way. So you gotta write it to invite it. Pick up our bestseller manifestation box on pausepenny.com. I actually had 2 dreams. I call them premonitions. I don't know what you'd call them. One of them was before the loss of the baby. I had a dream that, I went into the hospital and they told me, and it literally played out a couple days later, the exact way I had dreamt. It was one of the reasons why I didn't want to go for the scan by myself, because I had such a vivid dream. So when my husband asked me, like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so? And I was like, I just know I had this intuition. So I was always wondering, like, was that my higher self almost alerting me so I wouldn't go into too much shock, maybe? And then separately after that, I had a dream that I was underneath all these cherry blossom trees. This was August. I had a dream that I was underneath all these cherry blossom trees with the baby. And I asked my friend who's really into dreams and cherry blossoms and this, and I said, what does this mean? And this was August. So Polly had passed away in the May. And she said it means like death and kind of new beginnings. And just after that, right, I had found out I was pregnant with Penelope. And long story short, all my pictures with Penelope are under, when she was first born, these cherry blossom trees. So it's weird. I always wonder, like, did I have this vision of my future self in both? It's never happened. It's only ever happened in those 2, as far as I'm aware.
Called precognitive dream. Everyone has them. You might say, well, I don't. You've just got to teach your brain to remember. Precognitive dreams are very real. That's how I manifested my house in Cornwall. How you saw it. It already exists, Yvonne. That's why you saw it, essentially. So you just tapped into that in that moment. It's so hard, but it's true that sort of time itself doesn't really exist. So what we do in a dream is we're able to get beyond time, and see an aspect of the future. It's just that reminder that time doesn't really exist, even though we have to use it here. So yeah, it's precognitive. And if someone's wanting to dream and remember their dreams, don't want to remember the dream, the wanting carries the vibration of lack. The best way to do it is just to write down, tonight I will remember my dreams. As soon as you wake up, the first thing you need to do is just jot something down. Even if it's just like a feeling initially, you're just teaching yourself to remember your dreams. And that's the first way to do it.
Yeah, because I really do. When I look back on those, I do think that they were bringing me, what were they bringing me? Kind of just like they were showing me the way. And I do believe that first dream was in order, almost in order to protect myself of like, because I think because I had a sense of knowing then. And if I didn't have that, I'm not sure I could have, like it was shock anyway, but I think it helped me have that sense. And then the second one gave me hope.
Mm.
So I think it's a good idea to say, I will remember my dreams and just keep saying it.
Mhm.
And then have that
Yeah.
piece of paper and pen
I
beside you.
think it's important to note on that though, that not every dream we have like that is
Yeah.
is going to be true. Some people might say, "Oh my, I've just had this nightmare. That means it's going to come true." That's what. If you ever wonder why I wear an Aura ring, I track the levels of my sleep. So we all dream, but it depends on different levels, like REM sleep, rapid eye movement, deep sleep. So a lot of the time when we dream, it's actually just our filter in our brain clearing out the day.
Yeah.
I think it's called the hippocampus, actually. Don't ask me how I remember that. But every day, like if you imagine a memory stick in your brain, you absorb everything you absorb in that day goes into that memory stick. And the whole purpose of sort of sleep is to empty the memory stick every night. Once it's emptied, you then dream. Now, for most people, I shouldn't say most, but for people that don't get enough sleep, their hippocampus, if I'm saying that right, or their memory stick isn't cleared all day. When they wake up, they've still got sleep debt, if you like. So then the following day they fill that memory stick and then they really struggle to remember and they think, oh, I've got a really bad memory. It's because like it's full. So that's why sleep's so important. But my point is about sometimes nightmares and things is it could just be your memory stick clearing through the night first, and then that's portrayed through your subconscious as like as a nightmare or something. You might have just seen something on the news, for example, that day, and the way it's portrayed in your nightmare is something happening to your family, for example. But it's not, it's just actually filtering through.
Yeah, so you have to have a little bit of intuition of knowing that when that dream actually
Yeah.
means something, or
Yeah.
were you just, was it something that you watched or consumed, or, and it's funny because after the loss of the baby, I remember my obstetrician said to me, I'm going to give you a pack of sleeping pills, because you're going to need these to sleep because of what you've just gone through. And I never took any. I never took any because I've never had such deep sleep after that loss in my life, but nothing, nothing came into my mind. It was like I had this deep sleep, but maybe I did have dreams, but I don't remember anything. But I've never felt that I've had such deep sleep. And it was after that. And I feel like maybe it was just needing that healing.
Mm.
And so your mind is kind of just, it's like I heard someone say before that like sleep is like the bridge that gaps the present and the healing, so I just needed it for healing.
Matthew Walker, Why We
Yeah.
Sleep, and Teresa Chung on Decoding Dreams. So that's the two recommendations there. Teresa's brilliant from the UK. She's got many books on decoding dreams. And then Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep is really good. It really helped me understand that actually the foundation of human life is sleep.
Yeah, but how are you supposed to be a manifester if you're a cranky person?
Well, if you don't get enough sleep, right, your vibration's going to be off.
Of course it is, and you're going to eat the
and
shit.
Then going back to quantum computers, there's going to be too much friction. The more I do this work, the more I realize actually it's just about removing friction.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why when you can have fun and be present and laugh and have fun, there's no friction, there's no noise.
But how do you tell someone, Matt, when they're trying to meet somebody and they're 38, 39, 40, and they've just been dumped and maybe they want their ex back and they also want kids and they're like, oh, holy shit, I'm getting closer. It's getting blah, blah. Life is shit. How do you tell them? Just go out and have a little bit, which I actually know is right. Like, I feel like the universe will deliver when you're in joy because your vibration will be higher. But how do you put yourself in that state of joy when you feel like, first of all, you're starting to compare yourself to everybody else? My friends are married. They've got kids. I'm getting older. There's nobody out there. You're telling yourself these things and you're telling yourself them because that is what you're living. So what do you say to these people?
Perception is what I'd say. I'd say, okay, well, let's be real for a moment. This is your existing reality. So there's two choices. We can either just admit that I'm not happy and look at all my friends and I'm miserable and I really want someone, or we can just say that time's moving regardless, and every day that I wallow in that, time's moved on again another day. That's one less day with someone in your life that you're not going to have. So the perception is, well, actually, if time's moving regardless, can't I just have a little bit of fun and actually just drop it's not about the person anyway. I think this is my real message when it comes to manifesting love. It really isn't about that person that you want to meet. This is about you. The only reason you want that person anyway is because, really, if you think about it, you're seeing in your imagination a version of you that exists, who's in love with life and alive and fun and free and sharing precious moments. You're actually attracted to a version of yourself, not the person. You don't even know what the person looks like. That's what do you want then? You don't want the person because they don't exist yet. Even if there was someone that existed, by the way, let's say a specific person, I would still challenge that person and say, actually, I think it's because they make you feel a certain way.
Or you want to feel validated
Yeah.
that they want you back.
Right. So again, you're attracted to the version of you that feels like worthy. So I think you've got to just work on you. And the perception then is, am I working on me then if I'm miserable? And I know that's hard. I know it is, but it's sort of a bit brutal but true. It's like just go and let your hair down, go and try and have some fun and almost forget about it. And because it's in the forgetting is remembering that you attract into your life what you are. So in the going out and having fun is actually when you'll meet someone.
Yeah. Okay. So let's break this down a little bit. First of all, you want to manifest a soulmate. And you're doing the work and you're doing the work on yourself, but it's time and you want to manifest someone. You need to live in the present moment and have fun. Right? But you also need to surrender and let go and trust the timing. So how does it all work together? Like, so someone says, I want to manifest somebody. What am I supposed to do from a manifestation perspective? And how do I actually let that go? Do I just not think about it? Do I think about it? Do I visualize it? Like, how do you advise someone to go about it?
Great question. So I think my advice is firstly to get clear on the version of you, but not too far out. The amount of people that I tend to talk to who are single, their vision is normally like getting married and having children. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. But I personally would say, does it feel a bit far out though from where you currently are? And the truth is, of course it does. Because like having children, well, we know it takes 9 months. We know realistically we're probably not going to get married straight away, as a process. So the distance between where they are and the vision creates obviously like a weak alignment. So it's harder to stay aligned to that. So we all have those great visions. I do, I'm sure you do. But what I find to be easier to manifest is just by reverse engineering that vision down to, let's say, 12 months. And I say then, okay, so in 12 months from where you are, what would you love to be true? And that person might then say, that I'm in a really happy relationship with my soulmate, that we're traveling, we're having fun. I've met his or her parents, and we're talking about just moving in together. So think about that, whatever feels true to you in that moment. And I would say what you need to do is you need to literally imagine that you are the director of this movie. So in any movie, we have a story. We have a start, we have a middle, we have an end. We have characters in the movie. So that's going to be yourself. It's going to be your family. It's going to be maybe your spouse's family. They might be a little bit harder to imagine because you don't know what they look like. There's going to be places. There's going to be things in that. There's going to be feelings, emotions. So try and make it as sensory and emotionally rich as possible. And that's what you should actually focus on. And then realize that you're also the editor, the actor, everything. And I literally sit with that and I create a story. As if, and any story you write, and this is what's really cool about a story, you're writing it as if it's done. So you write the story as if it's done, and then you use meditation as a tool every day to rehearse the story. Just like an actor or actress would rehearse their lines, you rehearse the story. And you play out in your imagination that it's true and that it's done. Now, I know I said about going out and having fun. I know that's not that easy for everyone. I know realistically a lot of people are struggling and, they haven't got the time to go out and let their hair down and have fun. Maybe they're juggling a couple of jobs. And so meditation's a great way, even if you can't have fun, to have fun. Because people say, but Matt, how do you like feel that you're in a relationship when I'm actually not? Or how do I feel that I've got money when I haven't? And if you can slow down your brain in meditation, your body subconsciously actually scientifically does not know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And I say this all the time, but we can all relate to nightmares. We spoke about nightmares. When you wake from a nightmare in that split second, you think that's true. And you look at your body and your body is showing you that it's true. Your heart's racing, you're sweating. So your body thinks that you're being attacked. So in meditation, if you can lower the noise and the friction, slow right down, and then rehearse your script, guess what? That heart's going to open. And you're going to start feeling a lot of love in that moment. You're going to start feeling a lot of freedom and peace. And just keep doing that. So then, to answer the surrender question, because people say, how do you surrender? Like, do you do it once and then like not show up again and do the meditation? Here's the analogy. If you can imagine planting a seed in your garden, imagine you being the gardener. Let's just imagine, I don't know, we're growing a specific plant in the garden, sunflower. So here's the conditions. It's, I don't know, June, July time, perfect conditions for sunflowers. So we're going to make sure firstly that we're going to remove any friction from the top of the soil. We're going to remove the rocks, the weeds. We're going to work on ourselves first. And now we've got the perfect environment. So now we're going to plant that seed fairly low into the ground. That's the subconscious. We're going to plant it once. So I want everyone to imagine the first time they sit down in their meditation, that's the seed going in. Now we know the conditions, it's fairly warm outside. So this seed's not going to survive without me protecting it, firstly. So I've got to make sure I cover it maybe so no birds can get to it. But also it's warm, so I've got to water this seed now. So what I'm going to do, because I've already planted it, is every day I'm going to show up and I'm just going to water the seed. Water the seed. Now as the gardener, I know it's not my decision when that seed starts to turn into this sunflower. We call Mother Nature. In divine time, Mother Nature. And we don't know. We think, we estimate it could be a month or it could be a little bit longer. And then one day we'll come out and there it is. Mother Nature, just so people know, is the universe. It's the same force. Where do people go wrong in manifestation? They go out and they go, why haven't I got a sunflower? And they kick the soil. Is the seed still there? Oh, it's still there. So start again. So when I bring this back to manifestation, get clear on a new vision, that's a new seed. So I'm not planting new seeds every day. I'm watering the seed. So I'm going back to the same vision every day. And I'm just giving a little bit more love, watering it again. A little bit more love, watering it again. And then, just like the gardener who's gone out and checked on the seed, they're going to carry on with their day, aren't they? Not going to worry about the seed. Yeah. You're going to carry on with your day. You might just think about your seed. Oh, that's going to be nice when that comes. It's coming, it's growing, But it's got to arrive when it's ready. And that's manifestation and surrender.
And then you start to see it come out of the soil and you're like, it's coming, your vibration is up, and then it.
Yeah, so that's a really good one because we did touch on it. So the becoming, for example, if it's a relationship, you might not just see someone's head and then it go again. It might most likely be sort of like seeing the synchronicity of wands. Which wands is new beginnings? So I can talk about the numbers.
Yes. And another thing I want you to talk about is that seed coming up, but then it's the synchronicity. So that's really important. And then after that, someone standing on it. The universe has challenged you. It's thrown you a curveball, and you're like, holy shit! Why is this not happening for me? I've been manifesting. I've been doing everything. I'm visualizing. I'm practicing gratitude. I'm doing meditation. This is what I'm asking for. I've asked for it. I'm supposed to get it now. How come it hasn't happened? How come I'm getting all these rejections? Hello, universe. I'm doing it. Hello, Matt. Hello, Yvonne. I'm doing it right. What's going on here?
Are you ready for me to go really deep though?
Yes. Okay, let's start with the angel numbers. This is something that, like, I love signs, I love synchronicities, but I just know that intuitively they raise my vibration, and I just accept. If anything raises my vibe, I'm a vibe, you're a vibe, it's a vibe, I'm happy, right? But I actually am starting to become more curious about the meaning behind them. And the reason is because I just feel now that there's something more. Like I said on my stories the other day, I got such amazing message from Matt that I was like, I keep seeing 555. It's coming up everywhere. Like I keep seeing 555 everywhere. And then Matt sent me a little message of what that means. And he was like, change, travel, adventure, change. That's, yeah, that makes so much sense to me because I'm starting to think of different things in my life and the direction I'm going in and stuff, you know?
So I first thought angel numbers were a bit woo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Angel numbers are angles of insight.
Are they
Angel
coming from angels?
Angels are you though. So anything outside of physical matter reality is actually a version of you. I'm going to tell you why in a moment. And
Okay.
that's in the going very deep part. It's your, yeah, you could see it as your angels because your higher self is really like your guardian angel looking over you. It's coming from the multi-dimensional version of you that exists outside of time. So imagine for a moment that your higher self is able to see the whole movie and it can fast forward. So why numbers? Well, numbers rule the universe. Pythagoras said that. And numbers for us sort of characters here in this three-dimensional reality, we couldn't exist without numbers. Pay for things, our Zoom calls, radio stations, it's all numbers. So numbers are everywhere, and the repetition of numbers are very primal. They get our attention. So we start to see these very synchronistic flashes of, it tends to be the 3, 4, like 11, 11 or 1, 1, 1. And we see them, and they're just the nature of the fact that there's sort of multiple, because we're probably just grabbed our attention. Our reticular activating system's like, whoa, need to pay attention to that. And then we start to see those very particular numbers though everywhere we look. Why? Now, for years, it frustrated me because I felt that everywhere you look online, you get a different interpretation of what it means. So I gathered my own sort of evidence based on what I found. And I thought, I'm not even going to teach and talk about angel numbers until I actually have my own proof through all of them. And it took me years, a couple of years actually, to actually get my own interpretation of what they mean and actually use them, take risks on them, get the feedback from the universe and then go, oh yeah, that actually does mean that. And so very simply first, let's think of 1 through to 9. Because when you get to 10, 1 plus 0 is back to 1. So there's a loop of 9, and we actually live through 9 cycles always. So for example, 2025 is a 9 year, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5 is 9. Next year, 2026 is a 1. So we're back to new beginning. So next year is a new cycle. So what does it mean? Well, 1 in that cycle, new, fresh start, new beginnings. So it means whatever you're thinking about is encouraging you that new things are happening, your manifestations are happening, or it might be encouraging you to take the risk, go for it, something new. And 9 is endings, completion, putting a bow on the last 9 cycles. So then let's think of the numbers in between. So 2 is balance, harmony, partnerships, trust, because balance is trust. When you're seeing 2s, it's like trust, have balance. 3s is self-expression, communication, getting your voice out. So a lot of people that I work with, they're like, Matt, I'm seeing the 3s all the time, but they're thinking of starting a podcast or they're thinking of starting something like being an author. That's the message to sort of say, get your voice out, be authentic. Or they could be in a relationship and the spouse is suppressing their truth and their voice. So if they're seeing 3s, it's really saying to you, look, this is your time to speak. 4s is, I love 4s. 4s is foundations, stability, protection from your angels. It's telling you to really focus on what's important, focus on building the solid ground. 5s is travel, change, adventure, freedom, expansion. If you're seeing 5s, it's like there's an aspect of your soul that's craving change because the soul really always wants and seeks change. It really does. You should always, when people say listen to your passion, just listen to your soul when it wants freedom. 6 is not the devil. 6 is balancing domestic and like personal. So it's very much like a call to like what's going on at home, domestic responsibilities around the house, like making sure you balance like work and personal relationships is 6. 7s are very much a call to sort of trust your instincts, intuition, inner wisdom, meditate on it. Like if you see the 7, like if you're having a thinking about something and you just keep seeing 7s, it's like trust your gut. Go in meditation. You know, that's 7s. 8s, flip 8 on its side, infinity symbol. If you see me driving around Cornwall, you'll see 888 on my number plate. Literally. 8's abundance, but not just like egoically money, abundance in all forms, love, success, helping people. The reason I love 8 is because, like I said, if you imagine just in your head now, flipping an 8 on its side, there's no squares, it's all curves. So like the energy, if you imagine, is always like in a continuous loop. And that's what's so nice about 8 for abundance. And then 9 is endings and completions. And that's angel numbers. And pretty much everything that I've done so far to get here has been through the guidance of those numbers.
So do you see numbers now and think I'm on the right track? Or do you see them and say, oh, I'm getting a sign to say to slow down, to whatever those number patterns. Like if you just see one set of, would you still have that same reaction? If you just saw one set of 777?
Well, I think we're all thinking of different things. Like even now, like I'm planning, like as my business grows and expands, like all different ideas and things. But at the moment, I'm seeing 4s again, which is just like, Matt, don't like, you got a lot going on. Your book's publishing this year. There's like there's always that egoic side of you that when you grow, you think, oh, I could do this, I could do that, I could do that. Like people say, Matt, start a podcast, and it's like 4's like, whoa, come on, just you got a lot going on. Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. Focus on the book, focus on you know, so it's like the 4s is like that just reminder for me to just focus on foundations at the moment. You know, so that's what happens. Whereas conversely, if I was, let's say I had an idea, but I was also doing a lot of things and I just was seeing 1s everywhere, I'd be like, it's telling me to go. Now it's just a reflection back. It's just telling you like what you know, and try and see it like that. So yeah, so decode them. And also, just so you know, whenever you're thinking a thought, so let's say you think a thought, like this happens all the time. Like Coruscant and I might be driving and we might come up with a new idea. And then literally in that moment, a car drives past with those particular numbers and we'll go, nope, not a good idea.
Really? So it's actually works both ways, that you're using it as a sign to do or to move forward or not to.
Yeah, because the duality exists in everything. People forget that it's one of the primary laws of the universe is sort of duality, polarity, which is that, you know, the simplest way to imagine like it is water exists as both hot and cold. So the angel number exists in both ways.
But how do you know it's telling you the opposite?
Well, that's part of that's the work.
Yeah.
In a way, like actually, normally it will always align with like your gut instinct as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I've shared this story again, but I will share this because this is a very real example of how the 4s helped me. So when Coruscant and I sold our house in Shropshire, in the UK, before we moved down to Cornwall, we thought it was going to be a fairly easy process. So we put our stuff into storage and we moved in with Coruscant's parents temporarily. And then we just moved to Cornwall in 2022. But because of like COVID, no one was really going abroad. Everyone was like, Cornwall's a very holiday sort of destination. It was literally like super hard to find anywhere to live. And it was like, it turned into a bit of a nightmare, but a great lesson. So we ended up moving back in with Coruscant's parents in like 2023. And it was actually one of the hardest manifestations because we had like equity from our house and we were trying to buy the dream house in Cornwall. And it just, nothing was coming up. So I said earlier, what I did is I set the intention in my dream to turn my problem into a solution to solve. So I'm here in this dream and I'm like, universe, show me the house, the perfect house. Literally, I mean, I was pulling my hair out at this point thinking, oh my God, I need to practice what I preach. Like, I'm a manifestation coach, yet this is super hard, like so hard. I'm here in my in-laws' bedroom. I'm 30 years old. Like our life's on hold. We can't try for children yet because our house is in storage and all of these things. And then I had this dream, right? And this dream was walking around this like unbelievable farmhouse. And I was like, wow. And the beams and timber, it was just stunning, and like open fires, land around, and we walk outside and there are these farm buildings next door. And I was like really excited in my dream. And we were there with the estate agent. And just to note, Parasan and I's dream and manifestation was to help her parents who were sort of on the verge of retiring. And the dream was to always, because their dream's always been to move to Cornwall, but they would never been able to afford it, was to buy a house that also had an annex for them, so they could not have to worry ever again and just be with us. And like they were there in the dream, and I was like, this is amazing. And then the estate agent said, if you want it, it's to rent. And I woke up and I was super disappointed. Anyway, I never do this, but I went straight onto Instagram. I'd never do that. I have this policy. I'm like, no phones for an hour. And the first video in the For You page was Ramet Sethi, who's got a book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich, going. And this, honestly, I remember it now. He said, this is why I never buy a house. And I was like, whoa, synchronicity of that. He was like talking about why he rents. And I was like, I'm never going to convince Corisande to rent. Like, I know she wants to buy a house. So that day we went to Bicester Village, which is a shopping centre in the UK. And we were having breakfast and I was telling her about the dream. And she was like, absolutely not. Like, we're buying. And I was like, yeah, but the market's like, and we were estate agents. So we knew, and we were chatting to the estate agent. So nothing was coming on the market. And the bill came and it was £44.44. And Coruscant, and I was like, there you go. And she was like, nope, that's just a complete coincidence. And I was like, it's telling us like foundations. And I really intuitively think like our higher self is telling us to just go and build foundations in Cornwall. Like, just go, even if we rent. She was like, no. So I just thought, you know what, I'm going to go on my phone and I'm just going to look at rentals. I honestly got on my phone, and I was the first house that came up. And this like gives me goosebumps to this day, even thinking about this. Yvonne, was the exact house that I dreamt, precognitive dreams. And Carson was like, that's weird. Like, she was like, it sounds exactly like you've explained it. She was like, but we're not renting. Happy wife, happy life. So we cross over. If anyone knows Bicester, you've got like shops and eateries. So we crossed over, went into a store. Carson was trying on some shoes. And the lady helping her happened to have this necklace on. And this is 15 minutes after, by the way. And the necklace read 444. And I said to her, do you mind me asking about that necklace? And she went, oh, this. Yeah, this is an angel number. This means protection and foundations and to trust your journey. And I was like, great. So Corisande looked at me and she was like, okay, we'll rent. Literally. So this was the Saturday afternoon. The estate agents had closed. So on the Sunday morning, we drove 4 hours down to Cornwall. We stayed in a hotel. We did a drive-by of like the outside of this rental property, this beautiful farmhouse. It's worth noting, by the way, at this point, sorry, that there was a particular house on the market that we really liked, but it was like out of budget and like it was just a little bit too far up. That was the dream in this particular location. And I was busy like trying to manifest that money, but like really wanting it. It was really hard to
good luck manifesting when you're attached.
Under pressure, exactly. And I knew the dilemma, you see. I didn't have any disbelief about manifesting the extra I needed. It was just more of the thinking this is going to sell really quickly in this village. So it was like putting me under pressure.
Yeah.
So I had to let it go. So we drive down. On the Monday morning, I phoned the estate agent. Bearing in mind, it's saying to let available. And she said to me, Matt, oh, unfortunately, Mr. Cooke, it's no longer available. I don't know why it's showing to let. A lady's actually picking up the keys on Thursday. All the contracts are done and everything. And at that point, Yvonne, I was gutted and really angry with the universe because I was like, hang on a minute, like you've given me this sign. I've now convinced Corisande to rent. Like, what the hell, universe? Corisande's now in like turmoil because she's like, I built her up. Like, we're renting now. We're going to move to Cornwall. And then nothing. So we then drive back another 4 hours, like barely spoke in the car. She's like, this manifestation stuff.
Yeah.
And, try and get back into like life in Shropshire. And on Wednesday, the phone rings out of the blue. It's the girl. It's a 20-year-old. She's literally new on the block. She even said that. And she was like, hey, Mr. Cooke. She was like, yes. Are you still interested in that rental? I said, yeah. She said, the lady who's going it, she's pulled out. But she said there were 30 other people who also inquired on the list and not one of them's picked up the phone. but you have. If you want it, it's yours. But you'll need to come and see it tomorrow. So I had a full day of clients and some new clients starting. So there was no way I could move them. So Coruscant and her parents drove down again, Cornwall. And I didn't even need to view it because I'd viewed it in the dream. It's the weirdest thing. And Coruscant like FaceTimed me. And 2 weeks later, we had the keys to that house. Now, what's so incredible about that is when we moved, we sort of let go of the need to buy. And our whole life exploded. Like my Instagram took off. We got pregnant with Humphrey. I got a book deal with Penguin. We made new friends. I was filming on the coast. Like it was a completely new vibe. And it was all to do with the foundations of being in Cornwall. And amazingly, the house came down, the house we wanted. It came to it sold, but then it came back on the market within that tenancy, like 6 months in. And we went to view it, and we actually couldn't buy it in the end because it had a collapsed septic tank, meaning you couldn't get a mortgage on it. But the most incredible thing happened. 5 fields away in the same village, another house came on. But this house, getting goosebumps, was the exact price budget we had. It had a separate annex for Coruscant's parents. It had been a holiday home for 30 years. It had lovely gardens. It was 4 bedrooms with the annex. And it was absolutely meant to be. And we purchased that house and we completed on it in September 2024. So we rented for a year and then bought this house. And I wouldn't have done it without the force.
Yeah.
I know that was a long story, but that was...
But it's really interesting, and it actually brings up a lot there. So I'll just give an example of us buying houses. So we wanted to look in certain locations in Ireland. Funnily enough, taking it back, when I started in a law firm, right, it was 2008, I was living in a place called Sandymount. And I used to say to myself, someday I'm going to live here. Someday I'm going to live here, right? But when we started looking for houses, I was open to a little bit broader of an area. Now Dublin's small, so it wasn't that broad. It was like Dublin 4, Dublin 6, to kind of certain areas. And we bid on lots of houses, and we got outbid. Houses were pulled from the market, so devastated. And then my husband always wanted a turnkey house. Like, we're going to have a turnkey. And I said to him, please, can we just renovate our own? I'd love to renovate our own house. Like, I can put my stamp on it. And he was like, no way, we need to. So anyway, this one house came up in Sandymount, and we went to go view it. I was like, please just come and view it with me, even though you needed a total renovation. And we walked upstairs and we looked out the back window, and he could see the Aviva Stadium. The Aviva Stadium is where like all the soccer games are played. And he's a huge soccer fan. He's like, okay. So then what happens? We start bidding on it, and bidding and bidding. And all of a sudden there was no bidders on this house. And all of a sudden there's loads of bidders. Not loads, there was. And then it was down to 2. And eventually, which I'm never like this, I'm always pushed. My husband says I'm talented at spending money, right? And so we're bidding. And I say to him, I remember we're in our apartment, and I'm looking at him, and I say, this is it. This is the last bid. And he's looking at me like in shock because he can't believe I'm saying such words. So we just have to let it go now. And I genuinely believed the house was gone after this last bid, because it was just going to push us too far beyond our budget. And the next day they said, you've got the house. But I had genuinely let it go. But why is it? Because I can't explain this. Why is it then when you let it go, when you let go how it's going to happen, when you genuinely let go when it's going to happen, it happens? Is there an answer to that?
Yeah. But I'm going to have to go very deep. And that also ties in with how I was rejected on the house we really tried to manifest as well. So I just want to answer this firstly, so everyone can relate to this. That I feel like I have all the tools and answers to manifest. Because I live and breathe it. It's what I do. Yet, just like this particular house in Cornwall that Coruscant and I wanted to manifest, the one with the collapsed septic tank, we were rejected. And in that moment, your ego can be very, very hurt. And we have free will. I could have forced the outcome. I could have tried to have found an investor independently. I could have tried to have made it happen. But by letting it go, we were redirected to this other house, which had the annex, and it was in budget, and it was beautiful. So I always say rejection is protection and redirection. But I'm going to be honest, actually, about this. And I only got the answer to this a few months ago. So this is like groundbreaking. and I don't know if anyone's explaining it this way, I really don't. The only way I could sense it was that ultimately, I don't feel like we're in full control, because I felt like, well, if I know all the tools and I'm rejected, it felt like there's an energetic force that ultimately has the say. That's what it felt like. It felt like there's something here that sometimes goes, yeah, and sometimes goes, nope. What is it? So I had to go off and find the answer. And it took me a year to find the answer, but I got it. And everyone needs to check out this guy. His name's Thomas Campbell. This is his truth, by the way, translated into this work. Thomas Campbell is a quantum physicist who in the 1970s was just a late 20-year-old working in a lab. He not spiritual at all, really, very left brain analytical physicist. He'd like experienced a little bit of transcendental meditation just because it was being offered at like the lab, and he was like, why not? Like it was like meditate to learn more type thing. And he was like, okay. So he was having some pretty cool experiences in transcendental meditation, TM, but nothing else. Until one day, someone in the lab said, hey, Thomas, have you read this book? It's called Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe. And he was like, oh, check it out. And he read it. He was like, this is a pretty cool book, but you know, I don't think it's real type thing. And it was all about this engineer called Bob Monroe who had these like very spontaneous out of body experiences called OBEs. And he was like, love to chat to him and, you know, talk about it. And then out of nowhere, one day, a few weeks later, this guy walks into his office and he's like, hey, you know that Bob Monroe? He lives like an hour away and he wants to do a talk at his house. So they like got a few physicists together and they went to Bob's house and they rocked up, and Bob was like, he's obviously done quite well for himself. He lives in this amazing house, and he's again like he was quite surprised. Bob is this like left brain analytical engineer who one day, like a few years before, had like randomly come out of his body and he was on the ceiling, and then like kept having them and having them and having them, which is where your consciousness completely ejects safely from the human body, and then you realize you're not your body. So Bob, being an engineer, wanted to study it. So he asked for two physicists to work with him, and he would train them to have out of body experiences themselves, and then they would put the data and the science together to try and demystify how it was happening. So so Tom Campbell was one of the first, as well as this other guy, and like 4 or 5 times a week they would go to Bob's house, and they created a technique for slowing down and actually coming out of their body. And then when they're out of their body, they do like crazy things. They go on trips all around the universe together and stuff. It was like really
Wild.
Cool. And at one point, Tom was saying he was spending in his 30s half his life out of body. Yeah, half his day out of body, more than half his day out of the body. And so they were putting together the most incredible research. And Bob Monroe ended up forming the Monroe Institute. And it's still going to this day. It's the largest institute of consciousness studies. And they actually worked privately with the CIA in the 70s and 80s on some very secret projects as well. They trained remote viewers and everything else. So he's very legit. Tom Campbell's still alive, and he's written 3 books called My Big Toe, which is My Big Theory of Everything, which is essentially like a documentation of like the journeys out of the body and what he discovered. And when he'd go out of body, being a physicist, he'd study. And one of his questions was, what is physical reality? And he wanted to know what God was and the universe and what it was. And he could go, because out of body, there's no limitations. So he went to the source of creation, the spark, what started it all. And this is amazing. And this is going to tie, by the way, into the surrender and rejection protection. He went back to the source. Might call it source or God or the universe. Try and imagine just an expanse of energy. Nothing else, just one expanse of energy before nothing else existed. And that piece of energy, at one point, a fraction of it became dimly aware that it was something. So this expansive energy, this dimly aware piece of energy, realized it was something. So the separation gave it like an experience. That's the duality. And it was like, oh my God, like it's not a human, it's just a piece of energy, but I am something. So it then realized that if it didn't keep evolving, it would be nothing, and it would actually de-evolve and just like crumble essentially. So what it needed to do was evolve. So how did it do that? Big Bang. It splits itself off into trillions of versions of itself. So we planets, stars, souls. So that's why you always hear we're one. because we're all from the same place. According to Tom Campbell's theory, by the way, this is his truth, not mine. And then, so we're expressions of the same thing. So we're all now independent. And then he's like, well, yeah, but these souls, they're not really learning anything because they know that they're all linked. They know what they're from. So we need to try and create an environment here where these like souls can forget who they are and forget that what they're from to learn and to grow and to continue evolving. So what we'll do is we're going to create a physical environment, a structure. We're going to create a rule set, gravity, all these things. And then these souls are going to incarnate into characters, like in a game. And then those souls and the characters are going to forget because of amnesia when they're born who they are. But initially as babies, they might like talk about past lives because they're still very much connected. But then these souls disconnect once they're in the body, like a fraction of them is in these avatars. And then they're going to experience duality. They're going to experience cause and effect. They're going to do things and realize that if they hurt someone, there'll be repercussions. And they're going to have this rule set. Going back to the whole rejection thing. So can you now imagine for me, Yvonne, that there's a part of our soul that's connected to all of that, that's forgotten what it is. So we're all one. And remember that dimly aware piece of energy wants to evolve, otherwise it will destroy itself. So its primary goal for us all is to evolve and to grow and to take back lessons. Now in physics, according to Tom Campbell, there's something called low entropy and high entropy. And high entropy is chaos, fear, and disorder. So the analogy I use is if you imagine putting a log on a fire, that log's going to crumble and burn, and that's high entropy. Low entropy is order, peace, and love. So what the universe is always trying to do is maintain low entropy, because with low entropy and structure and order, it can continue growing and evolving. With high entropy, it actually de-evolves and sort of, in a sense, breaks down. So bringing this now back to manifestation and that force that I was talking about. When we're manifesting, remember, there's a version of us that's outside of, whether you call it the matrix or the simulation, that's sort of part of us. Imagine the player playing the character. The player is like the higher version of ourselves and we're the character. And Yvonne goes, oh, I want to manifest this particular house. Your higher self can already see that, that house, though, is going to create high entropy. Because what Yvonne can't see is nightmare neighbors. Septic tanks, new roof, issues. But Yvonne's got free will, though, is that soul. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to gently reject it. Because actually, like, if I allow her to have it, it's going to like de-evolve. It's not going to contribute to the low entropy that we're seeking. So let me reject it and find another better house. In the meantime, you're there as this little character and you think, I'm doing all this work and like, why have I been rejected? Now, if you were to be egoic about it, you could go, screw that. I'm going to force that house through. And as a free will being, you can absolutely do that. But how many times can someone relate to something that doesn't feel right or rejection, forcing your way there anyway, even though your gut says no, you do it. Why does it always work out to be a problem? And you go, I should have listened to it didn't feel right. That feeling is yourself telling you from above. So when you rejected, like me, like you go, okay, something there is going to create high entropy. I've got to listen. I can't see it because I'm in the rule set. Me up there can. Let me just surrender. It's finding another house. Now I live in time, so that might play out as 3 months, 6 months, but just put the ego at the door, let it play out. And that's what that energy is. It finds another house that creates low entropy. Why? I find another house. It doesn't need a septic tank. It's in budgets. It's not putting me under financial pressure. It's got an annex already for my in-laws. Low entropy. Now, just on that, because I know this is a deep story, there's one book, which is one of my favorite books of all time. It's called The Surrender Experiment by Marcus.
Oh my God, I hate that book. That's the book. I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm actually so glad because we're gonna agree and we're gonna disagree here. This is great.
What do you not like first?
Okay, so firstly, one thing that I'm going to go back to. This is great because I was going to ask you about this book when we were going for coffee. I think this is really good, and you're going to explain why you love it.
Yeah,
and I'm going to explain. I'm going to take back those words. It's not hate. That's a very strong word. Okay. So I do like Michael A. Singer. It's a not hate. So it's not my favorite book, and I'll explain why. But firstly, what I would say is one of the things that I say in manifestation is you need to be very clear about what you want, but also don't be so specific that you limit the universe to one thing. So I would say, yes, you want to manifest a soulmate, but do not choose that it's the guy in the gym, the guy in the office, right? You need to think about the qualities of the person that you want. Yes, you want to manifest a house, but do not say, most of the time, I would say, unless you have this intuition and all knowing that it is that house, choose the qualities of the house that you want. I manifested a white Mercedes GLS. I was like, I want them. Why? There's an abundance of them. There's so many of them that the universe can bring me the right one. And I ended up getting a white one, right? But there's only one house, specific house that you want. There's only one specific person that you want. And I feel when you tell the universe, it has to be this. Yeah. You are limiting the universe to the potential that something even greater, like what you're saying, is out there for you. So I actually believe we need to be clear about what we want, a house in Cornwall that has a side passage for your parents, but not so specific that we're limiting and forcing it.
Like you're just correct. The only reason people struggle with that, though, is because they often can only believe what they see, and they struggle to believe that something else better exists because they can't see it. But just remember that reality is 99.9% invisible anyway. So what would you rather trust? So that is such a good point, by the way. Get clear on the characteristics of the person, the qualities of what you seek in a house, and allow the universe to, if it's meant to be, it won't pass you by. Because and this is where we're going to tie into the surrender experiment. Just remember why the universe will always find you something, if not better, the same, because otherwise it would be de-evolving itself because of high and low entropy.
Yeah.
So now tell me why you don't like
Okay, so I read the surrender experiment, and I really understand the spirit of the book is to let go and not to have so much certainty of where you, this is my interpretation of the book, right? So much interpretation of where you absolutely need to be in this world. And it's in some ways the reason, not the book, but as I've evolved with manifestation, I do less visualization because I'm like, I don't really need to know exactly where I'm going. I kind of have a vision of it, but I don't need to be so attached to it. I'm like, let's let the universe bring me all these opportunities and stuff for them to come. So I actually visualize sometimes a little bit less, or I'll stop visualizing when I know it's going to happen. I just let it go. I'm able to let go. But with the surrender experiment, I found that his interpretation was, if it comes to you, you must do it, right? So if it comes to you, if the teaching in the university comes to me, I must do it because that is the universe guiding me to do it. And I believe we're evolving, and that means we need to have choice. We talked earlier about coaching and doing one-to-one. And I said to you, yeah, Matt, I'm just not into the one-to-one. It's not for me. It actually lowers my vibration. I love the events. Now, I get asked on a weekly basis to do one-to-ones. If I followed the surrender experiment, I would do those one-to-ones because I'm following what is coming to me and what the universe is bringing me. But it's going to lower my vibration. So I feel like the intention of the book is good, but we also have to trust that there are certain things we know is not for our soul and it's not for us, and we have to be able to make those decisions. But I felt like fundamentally what he was trying to say was make those decisions and let the universe guide you. So that's my thoughts, but would love to hear what you think.
I sort of agree. I do agree. I think it actually left me in a state of like, I was quite perplexed by the book, I think, because I was like, well, hang on a minute. Because for anyone who hasn't read it, he goes from a hippie in the woods to building $1 billion business in the US. And now, as a result of a few other things, has become one of the biggest spiritual teachers. And he surrendered to the voice in his head. So the voice in his head would tell him not to do something. or the voice in his head would say, you need to, I think, go to law school or whatever his father was telling him to do. But he actually just wanted to meditate in the woods. So
Yeah.
he'd go from like meditating in the woods, and then he would surrender to the voice in his head, but allow the universe or allow life to call the shot. So if someone just sat down by him and said, hey, Mickey, can I sit with you and meditate? The ego would go, well, no, I don't know who you are and I want to be by myself, but he would. And then that person would end up becoming like a business partner. And so the whole story is how just by surrendering, he went from a hippie to being a billionaire and then one of the world's largest spiritual teachers. Now, remember what I've just said about low and high entropy. In theory, if we did all do that, now I've learned that from Campbell and listened to Mickey's story, we would, I'm not saying we'd all be billionaires, but it would all end up essentially getting to a point like that, because otherwise the universe would be de-evolving itself. So it's going to always try and put you in situations that eventually lead to low entropy. Not saying though that like what you're potentially not seeing, just to challenge you on that if I can, is the universe might be saying one to one, one to one, one to one, and you'll go, no, I don't want to. What you don't know is you could do one to one and there be one client that changes your life and then leads you somewhere else. So you have to realize actually in the pursuit of low entropy, there's sometimes high entropy first, because it's the universe's divine way of going, I'm going to get Yvonne there, but first she needs to go there. That's how she gets there. Like the amount of clients that have changed my life, even though my ego's like, this client like makes me nervous, you know, because they're running like this huge company and like, who am I to coach them type thing? And then the door they open, you know, it is unbelievable. So, you know, I wouldn't have written a book if it wasn't for my mentor, David. And I get loads of emails, and I had an email in February 2023 from a guy called David, and I'll keep his surname anonymous for now, but he was like, hey, Matt, love your work. It was just as I was exploding on Instagram. I'm a, you know, former president of Paramount Pictures, Walt Disney exec. I've got a school where I teach writers how to write or turn their writing into films and books. Can we have a chat? And, you know, I was getting loads of requests for this. And I don't know, just was like, I'm just going to allow life to call the shots on this and get on a call with him. And he was seeking a manifestation coach to help his writers, like just with their writing. I think I may have shared this before. And as I helped him, he then turned to me, even though this was an idea in my head about one day writing a book, having no idea. And he was like, Matt, you should write a book. And I was like, I know. He was like, and I'll help you. From the kindness of his heart, I had no idea that with nonfiction, you don't write the book first, you put a proposal together, and then you need to go and find an agent. This is all documented in my book, this story. Now, if I could have ignored that ego and gone, nah, too busy. I'm saying it would have unfolded in another way, but the synchronicity and how that unfolded was the universe and just following that. So going back to your point, yes, I don't think any of us would do that. I definitely don't. I turn down things all the time. And I have no doubt that actually it could have led somewhere, but you know, it's the choice I'm making, because we all have choice. We have free will. I just think it's an incredible way to remember that if we were willing to completely surrender to life, even the chaos that you might be in is actually leading you somewhere better, because the universe would be de-evolving itself. If you egoically got out of the way and trusted in the darkness that you might be facing, because even Mickey was like sued by the SEC and like it was huge, right? But eventually like that whole thing led to something quite beautiful in the end. Like I think I don't know if I think the case, it was that big, like it made him famous. So I'm with you on that. Like we do have choice and I listen to it, but I just think if you can take anything from it, the one thing I never understood was what I've just explained with low and high entropy, that it really helps us all remember that whatever challenge we're actually facing, if we can just get out of the way and just trust in this moment. Like going back to the perception thing, I'm going through something really hard at the moment and I don't know why it's happening to me. But it's okay that I don't know. So I know I've been saying this more often recently, that when I was younger, I used to play a lot of video games when I was a kid, like Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty. And it was like, a game's only fun when it's hard. Like it's only fun when it's hard. It is. Like if a game's easy, it's like, oh, completed that. Like the funnest games I ever played were the ones where I got stuck. I was like, I have to do this. Like, and I go back and I back and I back. So I always think if I'm going through a challenge right now, a game's only fun when it's hard. What's the fun in the game?
That's a great affirmation. I understand the spirit of the book for sure. But I still think that sometimes in my world, I think that the universe throws us challenges, and like I don't know why I have this perception. It's like it's throwing you to see, are you going to stick to your values, right? Are you going to be true to who you say you're going to be? I'll give you an example. I got a call recently to do an event, two events. So they'd have the event and then they'd have a pre-event earlier in the summer. And I've promised myself, and I've promised my husband, and I've promised my 4 kids that I am going to slow down over the summer. We're going on vacation in June. I'm not booking stuff over the summer. I really need to slow down because I'm working so fast, and I'm losing out that precious time. And you know what it's like as a dad now. That time is precious, right? And the most valuable currency you have in this world now is your time. And so I got this call, and it's like, oh, and we're going to have this event. Would you be at the event? And also we're going to do a pre-event. There's going to be influencers there, content creators there, blah, blah, blah. But it's 2 hours away. You have to drive down there 2 hours away and 2 hours back, blah, but it's blah. And I was like, yeah, great. That sounds amazing. I'll do both, And then immediately I was like, why did I say yes? Firstly, this is going to cause tension with my husband because he's going to have 4 kids for an entire day while I hightail it off. And secondly, it doesn't feel right. Like I am telling myself I need to slow down, yet I'm saying yes to everything else. So I went back to the lady and I said, you know what? I'm sorry. I said yes too quickly, but I'll do one day later in the year, but I'm not going to do the summer event. And I feel like sometimes it's not like the universe is testing us, but once you make a decision in your life, like I'm going to slow down or I'm going to do this, I feel like all these challenges come your way. And the universe is like, but will you? Will you? So here you go, Yvonne. Here's now 5 events for you to do. Are you going to say yes to them all? Are you going to, and you're going to burn yourself out, and your husband's going to be annoyed with you, and you're not going to see your kids, and they're going to wonder. And I really do believe that's why, for me personally, the surrender experiment, the spirit of it, let go of life, surrender and let go, trust the timing of your life, but also stick to your values.
I agree. And I think the one thing I would say there, though, is you could argue that the universe, by doing and putting all those events, was actually getting to a point to create low entropy, because what it wanted for you to learn through initial high entropy was in the future, I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
So I absolutely agree. And I think even though I love the book, I don't think any of us in our right mind would do it. I say no all the time. And I actually have done a recent video. In fact, interestingly, my video this Saturday, my email newsletter, I know people are watching this in the future, but is protect your energy. And it's finding the power to say no more often and defending your no's. So look, even though I believe now, like I really do, that the outcome of that would eventually lead to low entropy, I think we do have choice. I think that's really important. And I think the most important thing to me anyway right now is like my family. So, I'm saying no a lot to things, even though I had a great opportunity to speak in Spain. And I'm super grateful for the event organizer. And she might be watching this. And it was to be in front of some absolutely incredible tech CEOs and billionaires. And, I just thought Humphrey's going to be like 7 months old. It's June. It's going to be really hot. I don't want to go away and leave him. Like, he's here in Ireland, which is really nice. And he's going to be in a hotel room with Khorasan whilst I'm speaking there, because I wouldn't want to leave them at home by themselves, because Khorasan needs me. And the thought of like just the heat and like just the food and the prep and then I just thought, no, I've got to listen. Like, I have no doubt that I'd probably have an unbelievable conversation at that event and someone just open a door somewhere. But I've got to listen to what feels right. And all the universe will do is it just reorganizes something for somewhere else,
Yeah, so then there is that element of trusting your own intuition
agree.
and not saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
Because I do think saying yes, if you go into your analogy, is going to lead to high entropy. Is that what it's like? It's going to lead to that initially, because my husband is saying to me now, Yvonne, you're too busy. And what did I manifest? I manifested a soulmate. I manifested these children. I struggled to have them. I struggled to meet somebody. And now I have it. And I'm saying yes to spend time elsewhere. So I think it's sometimes in life we have to, like, if we make a decision, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to be more present. I'm going to, you know what I keep telling myself? Less chasing, Yvonne. Less chasing, more attracting. Stuff is
I don't
going to
chase.
come in. I don't chase, I
attract.
attract. You know, and so that means that even if it's a great opportunity, sometimes you just have to say no.
But what's this? You could say in a sense, then you're potentially going through a period of high entropy. You know, just chaos, a lot going on. But you'd have to agree with me though that, you know, it's annoying when people go, "What's the lesson in it?" Well, the high entropy is the lesson.
Yeah.
Which will ultimately create low entropy, because you're going to be saying, I'm not going to chase to attract. You know, I know what's important to me. These are my foundations. And so see what I mean? So the high entropy will always lead to the low entropy. So if someone's going through a really dark relationship or something at the moment, it's a great time to step back, detach, observe, and look at the lessons here, because the high entropy will always then continue in the long run to create low entropy, because you're like, you know what? If there's any characteristic traits of the person I'm currently with, red flag.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's going to continue. That will create more high entropy. So I'm going to try and maintain, you know.
And I do believe there's a lesson in everything. That lesson for me was slow down and think before you say yes.
Yeah, always.
You know?
Always. I'm with you on that. I really am. Like I said, you know, there's so many, when you start growing in this space, like you are, there's so many opportunities that come out of, like, you know, like I love the idea of traveling to Dublin and being here for this weekend. Because why? Because firstly, I just love talking about this. I knew you and I would have a great conversation. I know a lot of people will listen to this and we can go really deep. But at the same time, if I think of the trip, it creates low entropy. Why? My mother-in-law, bless her, she's come along with my wife. So currently, as we speak, my wife, my mother-in-law, and Humphrey are shopping. Dublin, I've never been before, and the shops are amazing. And I know now, as I speak to you, I know Coruscant's not waiting in some hotel room for me. She's out having the time of her life, you know, with all those shops. And then we'll go out and find something for lunch and dinner. And then that will create amazing memories for our roundup that we do on Instagram. And that's going to create low entropy. So I looked at this opportunity with you in the event, and I thought, this feels right, you know, as well. So I'm with you on choice 100%. And I think we did something this morning where you write a letter to your future self. But I think and I heard Stephen Bartlett say this from the Diary of CEO. And, you know, I don't think he's into manifestation, but he obviously is.
I think he is.
You know, he hasn't had a manifestation coach yet on the podcast.
He hasn't. You're going to be on there, I guarantee you.
He does a thing where he says and I absolutely, because I watch him on Dragon's Den as well, and I think he must have so much going on. You can see that. And he says something every now and again where he's like, I say to my present self, like, why did my younger self say yes to that?
Yeah.
Because I'm now having to, and it's so true. Like, it's so easy, isn't it, in the moment to say yes to something, because we don't have, this version of me doesn't have to do it right now. But remember, there is a version of me that exists and will exist in that future that has to do it. And Stephen's like, I say yes to so many things, and I'm here now, and I'm like, why did I do that?
And then you become resentful.
You do. Right.
Then you become resentful. Like, even for me, as an example, I think one key message, folks, is to take responsibility for yourself and for what you say. So I got asked by a pal, this was it, to be on his podcast. Great guy. And I said, yeah, I'll go on. Then it got closer to the date, and I'm really busy in work. And I'm like, why? Oh my God, I've got to go on this podcast. I gotta, you know, why did I say getting annoyed? And I said, this isn't his problem. This is your problem, Yvonne. You said yes. Now, he is a friend. I understand that. But maybe you still have got to tell your friends and your family, it's a busy time for me right now. I just can't. And we got to let go of that people-pleasing streak, because it only makes you resentful to the other person, and they've got nothing to do with it.
Absolutely.
It's all yourself. It's all you. It's becoming aware of the choices that you are making. So that goes back to the surrender.
It does, but you're also, I've got another sort of theory on this, that you know, if at our core we are just energy, which is true scientifically, and your energy, better said, your consciousness, your observation collapses the wave in quantum physics, then the more energy you have to be conscious towards your desire, the more powerful you're going to be at collapsing the wave or manifesting. So if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, how many of us give away our precious energy through attention, through through distraction, through saying yes to things, being people pleasers, doing things that we don't want to do? We actually become less powerful. So what Coruscant and I actually do is we imagine we're inside an energy bubble, and we say to ourselves, we check in every now and again, and we're like, is there anyone or anything stealing our energy? Are there any leaks in this bubble that we need to be aware of? And that could even be like a conversation with her where I'm like, just checking in. Are you all right? Is anything on your mind? Like, how do you feel about yourself? And actually very recently that led to a conversation where Coruscant, she's my hero. She does all the work on my Instagram, but very much aware that she felt like a bit of a background person, you know, because I'm very much aware that it's me on camera. And it led to this realization for her anyway, that she had a voice in this space. And as I'm talking to you, I can see on the wall behind you, "Find your voice," which is quite synchronistic. Look.
Aye.
And so it led to her then creating her Instagram and finding her voice in this, which she knew she had in her. And that, I was so proud of her in that moment, not in a condescending way, because she was allowing the fear of not stepping out, or even the thought of like not being a background person, to steal her energy. So we sealed it, and she created her own account, and she's feeling really good about just putting her own message in the world. And I think, so try and imagine that you're in this bubble, and it's not always about people stealing it externally. It could even be an internal thief.
So this is something that I want to talk to you, because I want to tell the folks about this. So myself and Matt have just talked about doing an event together, a live podcast together. And I was saying to Matt, I've reached out to a specific spot in Dublin. Let's call it the Sugar Club, guys,
Sugar
where I
Club,
want to
where are
go.
you?
So I sent Matt a message, and I was like, Matt, I really want the Sugar Club, but like they're just not responding to me. And the reason why I want the Sugar Club is because I know it's got the layout, the setup, everything. And Matt sent me back I can be really like like
Yeah.
high octane, and Matt is real calming, and he was like, Yvonne, let's channel that we want this. We're doing it together. It's going to happen. It was a real calming message. I was like, would you calm down, Yvonne? Geez, listen to Matt. So then anyway, still having a little bit, but we need to let go. But can you talk just a little bit about co-creating with a partner or a friend or something? Like, let's say a couple want a house. Let's say a couple want a baby, or a couple, like, firstly, if you're trying to manifest something with your partner that your partner doesn't want.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Okay.
And is it the better manifestor wins? I always say that to my husband. Well, I'm a greater manifestor than you. That's why we manifested twins. And then secondly, how can you work as a couple to actually amplify your manifestation?
Okay. Let's just imagine together right now, you and I are trying to manifest more money.
Yeah.
Big manifestation that a lot of people are. Now, if anyone's watching this and they're in a relationship, here's what I would do. Yvonne, what does money mean to you?
Abundance,
Keep going.
5-star life, lots of it, easy to make, easy to come, love money, money loves me.
Now ask me the same question.
Matt, what does money mean to you?
It means protection, safety. It means investing, long-term growth, foundations, as well as having nice things.
Yeah.
But if I listen to my soul, that's the main thing. Okay. So if I didn't ask you that, and I was like, Yvonne, let's manifest like in putting all our money in the S&P 500, paying off our house early,
Yeah.
putting a nest egg together. I haven't asked you what it means to you, and you've just said to me 5-star life. Did you feel like you're going to be coherent in that vision? You don't want to visualize putting it in the S&P 500. So what I'd then say is, okay, well, look, we both want slightly different things with money. I'm sure I want 5-star life. You do. I'm sure you want to make sure that there's money aside as well. So let's create a unified dream together where that money can be used for different things. So can we create a vision together now where we imagine this 5-star life, but at the same time, look at our investments growing in the market? And then the book that I read that helped me that was Ramit Sethi, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. So he has this amazing framework, right? Where I'm just going to use let's just say round figures, 10K. Let's imagine a household brings in 10K. What he would say is his sort of model is 50% goes to fixed costs, 10% goes to investing, 10% goes to saving, 30% guilt-free spending. So 3K in that guilt-free spending. So then you distribute that and go, right, okay, so there's my fixed cost. So I know, at least I know the mortgage is paid, the cars, whatever. I've invested, we've saved, and now we have 30% to blow every month. Now, if I didn't do that with, let's say, Coruscant, I'd be like, "Oh, she's like she wants to live this 5-star life. Or Yvonne, she wants to live this 5-star life, but she's not thinking about like future Yvonne here, and you know." But if you'd done that modeling, you'd saved and you'd invested, and now there's 30% for guilt-free spending. We're both on that. Go and spend it. Like, what? You've still got $1,000 left of on this 2 days. Go and buy yourself a handbag. You know. So I think you've got to. What am I getting at? Like, it's just asking, what does it mean for you, and then working together in that vision. And I think that's then how together you become a force.
What happens though when someone in that relationship is more negative? Like, let's say my husband's not negative, but let's just say to him, I want to have this life. I want us to buy a villa in the future because I'd love us to be there with the kids. I want sunshine. And they're like, that's never going to happen. That's like, you're living you're delusional. How do you deal with that?
I think that's a great question. Actually, I've worked with quite a few clients whose spouses have been like that. I think actually the first manifestation is working on that really in a sense. You know, so trying to not force it down their throats. You need to meditate. You need to do this. Just give them space and understand that actually the best thing you can do is not react in that moment. What I always do here, even with family members or even clients, is I use gene keys, which is something we spoke about earlier, to help me understand the unconscious aspects, the shadows in that person that they can't see. Because what tends to happen is if someone's negative, you're actually probably more aware of how negative they are than they are. So what actually happens is you become conscious of their unconscious. So really the goal there needs to be that you help shine the light on someone's shadow. So instead of reacting to their negativity, you reframe in that moment, or you go, you know, just not challenge them, but you just want to gently sort of just tell them that, you know, yeah, but there's another way we can look at that. You know, yeah, but that's not true, is it? You know, remember, fear is just false evidence appearing real. And just in that moment, instead of like reacting and arguing, just like slowly start showing them the light and help them come out of their own shadows a little bit first.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing because like I always say manifestation is your vibe. It's how you show up in the world, but it's also how you react to situations. So they could say something and you could immediately react with this, oh, you're so annoying. You're so negative. And then bing, bang, boom. There's another argument. There's another fight. There's people not talking to each other. You're always stomping on my dream. He's so negative, glass half empty, instead of thinking, okay, how do I need to change the way I say this? Or how can I help them on their journey? Which it could be something simple like playing fun music. I know it sounds small, but like, and also I always say to people, meet people where they're at, right? Yeah. So my husband is starting to get more and more, say, not into manifestation, but he has elements of it that he doubts, and then elements that he's like, that kind of makes sense, but he's not fully there like I am. So if anything sport related comes up, Novak Djokovic talks about when he was 8 years old making a
Wimbledon trophy. Yeah.
A Wimbledon trophy. Ivan Toney talking about, or Ivan Toney, is it? It was a soccer player, talks about manifesting, scoring a goal in his comeback game after he was on kind of, he's had gambling or something like that. I can't remember the full extent to the story. Cristiano Ronaldo talking about visualization and manifestation on the Whoop podcast. Meet people where they're at and show them, okay, it's not just me talking about this. Look at these sports stars that you can relate to.
Absolutely. And allow people to get it in their own time. Like I've never forced my dad to understand what I do. You know, he's 70 years old. He's been a corporate individual all his life. When he first said, "You're doing what? Man, what's that?" You know, I didn't get it at all. But of course now, like my dad's met a new partner and and his partner's spiritual, and he and her sister's spiritual, and like they've hilariously organically sort of found my work, and then like shown my dad, and my dad's then shown an interest, and like listened to like Wayne Dyer, and like my dad slowly go, oh, like, you know, so in his own time, he's started to understand what I do, which is really powerful. But I think you're absolutely right, meeting people where they're at. Like I always say, like if you've got someone who's got more of a scientific brain and needs, like me actually, more of the science to demystify it, it makes sense for most people who listen to me that Dr. Joe Dispenza is one of my heroes, because
Mhm.
he, of course, leverages science to demystify it. So that helps me. Whereas, you know, if I'm honest, that, you know, as much as I love like Esther and Jerry Hicks, for example, you know, and channeling Abraham, like when I first heard about the law of attraction, it was like, it was hard for me to like, is that real? Whereas now, you see, now because of like, I talk a lot about physics and quantum mechanics and collapse of the wave. That's my sciencey brain. But because I now like know the science of it, and like it's not even like it's true. It's science. It's like, oh my god, it's so obvious. Then when I listen to like Abraham or Daryl Anker channeling Bashar, I'm like, wow, of course, incredible, because I'm like, what? It's real,
Yeah.
you know. But I wouldn't have necessarily accepted that, because I needed someone to meet me where I was at, which is Joe.
Yeah. So, Matt, final question. What is the message you want to give today?
Move beyond wanting. At your core, you're a creator. You have the power within to create. Wanting, of course, is really powerful. It's where we start, but wanting carries the vibration of haven't got. Get clear on what you want and move beyond it. What do I mean? Get clear on the version of yourself that exists in your imagination when you have that desire. Go from wanting to being, and know this, that you don't attract into your life what you want, you attract into your life who you are.